The dawn of transformation. The stone floor was cold beneath Elena's knees, though she barely felt it anymore. Her body temperature had dropped 2 degrees in the past hour as she traced corruption sequences across her skin with void-touched ink. The symbols burned as they settled into her flesh, each one a gateway for the darkness she would soon consume. 3 hours until dawn. 3 hours until she became something other than human. The convergence chamber pulsed with dying light, the damaged ley lines leaking power like blood from severed arteries. At the chamber's center, true darkness waited. Not the absence of light, but the presence of something that should not exist in the material world. The breach Brennan had carved into reality. Elena's monitoring equipment registered the corruption levels in precise, merciless numbers. The darkness pulsed at 847 units per minute, each pulse sending ripples through the continental ley line network. Without intervention, the eastern reach would collapse completely within 48 hours. The cascade would reach Thornhaven within a month. Cassian's ceiling would fail in 30 years instead of 57. She couldn't let that happen. Elena opened Serafina's journal to the technique she had memorized but needed to see written one more time. The first keeper's handwriting was precise, clinical, documenting the exact sequence of corruption required to interface with the Void Weaver's essence. First, saturate your essence channels with void-touched energy. This will hurt. It should hurt. Pain is the body's warning that you're destroying yourself from within. Second, open your consciousness to the darkness. Let it see you. Let it recognize you as kindred. Third, when it reaches for you, and it will reach, don't resist. Become the vessel. Become the prison. The transformation is irreversible. You will exist in frozen time for 3 centuries, conscious but trapped, slowly forgetting who you were. By the end, nothing human will remain. Elena's hand trembled as she closed the journal. Serafina had documented the technique, but refused to use it. Serafina had walked away, built a life, let Kale remain imprisoned rather than trade one sacrifice for another. But Serafina had 3 centuries to make that choice. Elena had 3 hours. The chamber doors groaned open behind her. Elena turned, expecting King Edric or Ambassador Wintermere, but instead found a figure in dark robes standing in the doorway. The face was hidden beneath a deep hood, but the voice that emerged was cultured, educated, familiar in a way that made Elena's stomach clench. "Keeper Brightwater, how fortunate to find you here." The figure stepped into the chamber, and the wards along the walls flickered in response to his presence. Elena's magical sight caught the corruption woven through his essence. Old corruption, deliberately cultivated, nothing like the chaotic spread that was killing King Edric. "Who are you?" Elena demanded, though part of her already knew. The precise way he moved, the controlled corruption patterns, the timing of his arrival. "You may call me Mordane's Mistake." The figure lowered his hood, revealing a man in his mid-40s with silver-streaked hair and eyes that held too much knowledge of darkness. "Though I prefer my given name, Magister Brennan." Elena's void-touched ink burned hotter on her skin as she rose to her feet. "You sabotaged the ley lines. I created an opportunity." Brennan moved closer to the breach, his expression contemplative as he studied the darkness. "The Void Weaver has been imprisoned for 3 centuries. 300 years of consciousness trapped in frozen time, slowly fragmenting, slowly forgetting what it was. Don't you find that cruel?" "It's necessary," Elena said, though her voice wavered. She thought of Cassian, of the 74, of the terrible price they paid for the kingdom's safety. "Is it?" Brennan turned to face her, and his corrupted eyes reflected the chamber's dying light. "Or is it simply what we tell ourselves to justify the sacrifice of a few for the comfort of many? Tell me, Keeper, when you become the prison in 3 hours, will you think it necessary, or will you think it cruel?" Elena's hand moved toward her monitoring equipment, but Brennan raised his palm in a gesture of peace. "I'm not here to stop you. Quite the opposite." He withdrew a crystalline vial from his robes, filled with swirling darkness that made Elena's corruption patterns pulse in recognition. "I'm here to offer you a choice." "What is that?" "Concentrated Void Weaver essence, enough to accelerate your transformation from 3 hours to 3 minutes. Brennan held the vial up to the dying light. "Or enough to destroy the technique entirely if consumed incorrectly. It depends entirely on what you choose to do with it." Elena's mind raced. Why would you help me become the prison? You sabotaged the ley lines to free the Void Weaver. I sabotaged them to create a crisis that would force someone with forbidden knowledge to act. Brennan's smile was sad, knowing. The Void Weaver doesn't want to be free, Keeper. It wants to be understood. It's been screaming that truth for 3 centuries, but no one with the ability to hear it has been willing to listen. You're insane. Perhaps. Brennan set the vial on the floor between them. Or perhaps I'm the only one who understands what your beloved Cassian discovered in his final moments, that the Void Weaver and the prison are the same thing. The entity you're about to consume isn't separate from the technique. It's the technique's natural conclusion. Elena stared at the vial, her corruption patterns burning in rhythm with its pulsing darkness. What do you want from me? I want you to make an informed choice. Brennan moved toward the chamber doors. In 3 hours, you can follow Seraphina's technique exactly as documented. Corrupt yourself slowly, consume the breach gradually, become the prison through measured transformation. You'll have time to feel every moment of your humanity slipping away. He paused at the threshold, looking back. Or you can consume that vial now. The transformation will be instantaneous, painless, complete. You'll interface with the Void Weaver's consciousness directly, understanding its nature in the moment before you become its prison. You might even discover what Cassian has been trying to communicate through those corruption patterns. And if I refuse both options? Brennan's expression turned genuinely sympathetic. Then the Eastern Reach falls, the cascade destroys Thornhaven's ceiling, and in 30 years the Void Weaver breaks free anyway. Except instead of one person choosing sacrifice, millions die in the chaos. He pulled his hood back up, becoming shadow once more. The vial will remain stable for 3 hours. After that, it will detonate, destroying this chamber and everyone in it. I suggest you decide quickly. Brennan vanished through the doorway, leaving Elena alone with the pulsing darkness at the chamber's center and the crystalline vial between. 2 hours and 57 minutes until dawn. 2 hours and 57 minutes until the vial detonated. Elena's hands shook as she picked up the vial. The darkness inside moved with terrible intelligence, recognizing her corruption patterns, reaching for her through the crystal barrier. She could feel its hunger, its loneliness, its desperate need to be understood rather than simply imprisoned. Was Brennan right? Had Cassian discovered something in his final moments that changed everything? The 9-pulse sequence he'd communicated before she left Thornhaven. What if it wasn't a warning, but an explanation? Elena set the vial down carefully and returned to her monitoring equipment. She pulled up her documentation of Cassian's corruption patterns from the past 4 months, searching for anything that might validate or refute Brennan's claims. The patterns were there. Subtle, easy to miss if you weren't looking for them, but undeniable once recognized. Cassian hadn't just been communicating. He'd been trying to teach her something about the nature of the prison itself. The 9-pulse sequence appeared 17 times in her records, always in contexts related to the ceiling's stability. 9, not a count, but a concept. 9 as completion, 9 as transformation, 9 as the moment before 10, before a new beginning. Elena's breath caught. Oh, Cassian, what did you discover? The chamber doors opened again, and this time King Edric entered, supported by Ambassador Wintermere. The king's corruption had spread to his jaw, black veins crawling up his neck like twisted roots. Keeper Brightwater. His voice was weak but determined. I've come to witness your working. You shouldn't face this alone. Elena looked at the dying king, at Wintermere's exhausted face, at the crystalline vial pulsing with concentrated darkness. She thought of Cassian frozen in Thornhaven, of Seraphina walking away, of Brennan's terrible offer. Your Majesty, Elena said slowly, I need to ask you something. When you led the reinforcement working at Ironhold, in the moment before the backlash hit, did you hear anything? Feel anything from the darkness itself? Edric's eyes widened. How did you know? What did it say? The king's hand moved to his corrupted chest. It said, Stop fighting. Start listening. I thought it was the corruption speaking, trying to seduce me. What if it wasn't? Elena picked up the vial, holding it to the light. What if the Void Weaver has been trying to communicate for 3 centuries, and we've been too afraid to hear it? Windermere stepped forward, her ice-blue eyes sharp despite her exhaustion. Keeper, what are you suggesting? Elena looked at the breach, at the vial, at her corruption-marked hands. She thought of Cassian's 9-pulse sequence, of Seraphina's refusal to trade one prison for another, of Brennan's claim that the entity and the prison were the same thing. I'm suggesting, Elena said quietly, that we've been asking the wrong question. Not, how do we imprison the Voidweaver, but why does it need to be imprisoned at all? The chamber grew colder. The breach pulsed faster. The vial in Elena's hand burned with terrible recognition. 2 hours and 43 minutes until dawn. 2 hours and 43 minutes until detonation. 2 hours and 43 minutes to decide whether to become the prison or to discover what the prison truly was. Elena Brightwater, keeper of Thornhaven, stood at the convergence point between knowledge and sacrifice, holding concentrated darkness in her hands and feeling the weight of 3 centuries of mistakes pressing down on her shoulders. Somewhere in Thornhaven, Cassian pulsed 9 times, trying to warn her or guide her or tell her something she desperately needed to understand. The dawn was coming, and Elena had to choose.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.